Oh, my God. The Philadelphia Eagles. Ladies and gentlemen, Giant fans, I'm with you. I am with you. All together now. We should all sing it together. Instead of fly, Eagles, fly, die, Eagles, die. On the road to misery. D-I-E-E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles.
Oh, a bunch of losers.
Giant fans, congratulations. I know it's been a long time since you experienced a Super Bowl championship, but the last...
Not that long, dude. I mean, come on.
Well, the whole great...
It's not 55 years, bro.
I wasn't bringing my team up with
I
this.
know, but damn, I mean, it's like you're like haunting us.
No. Today I come in peace. Today I come in solidarity.
Uh-huh.
The last 48 hours have been some of the greatest days this fan base has seen in a long time, because we witnessed on Sunday the Dallas Cowboys get absolutely embarrassed, and last night was the culmination of something that should stun nobody. The culmination of one of the great sports collapses we have ever seen. Tiki, the Philadelphia Eagles went from being in the Super Bowl, being very close to winning a Super Bowl, to blaming the turf, to Nick Sirianni is so lovable, he's amazing, he's the greatest, into, we're not playing great, but we're off to a 10-1 start, into one of the most epic sports collapses of all time, capped off by Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield sending them home. Trey Palmer is still running because James Bradbury can't make a tackle. The Eagles are dead. Congratulations, Giant fans.
So the best thing about this is that the Eagles and the Cowboys are now sitting at home wondering what the hell their futures mean. They have no idea. A year ago, the Cowboys thought, okay, we're just a little bit away. We need to get rid of our offensive coordinator, Mike McCarthy. Come back and do what you do well. Call the plays. Dak's going to be fantastic. He's going to have a bounce-back year after leading the league in interceptions. And what happens? Bounce in the first round of the postseason. No. Embarrassed in the wild card round.
Yes, please throw that in there. They didn't just lose.
Oh, yeah. They got destroyed by an upstart. The imperative word is upstart Green Bay Packers squad. The Philadelphia Eagles, a year ago, they're in the Super Bowl. We're talking about how Jalen Hurts, who's making, $50-something million a year after his rewarded contract, is going to be the best quarterback in the NFC East, maybe one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC. And right now, he can't get out of his own way. And this all goes back to the Jets game. We go back to the Jets loss.
Really? You're going to give us some credit here?
I am going to give you some credit because that was the first time where you paid attention and scratched your head. Now, there were some signs early on for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just, it doesn't feel quite right. Yeah, maybe they're just getting over the loss of C.J. Gardner-Johnson and some of these other defensive pieces which they thought were expendable. And, they hold on to Darius Slay and James Bradbury. They'll be fine even though they're over their 30s, and they wanted to get rid of both of them. But the point is, the Eagles had some early signs of this is not quite right. And the Jets' loss was the first one. And then from there, it spiraled. So I give you Jets and you Jet fans and Jet players and even Jet coaches some credit for exposing what was about to happen to the Philadelphia Eagles. And right now, the Cowboys and the Eagles have zero idea how to find answers going into 2024. To me, as a Giant fan, that's awesome.
No doubt. There are many aspects of the Eagle collapse we'll get into as the show rolls on. But off the top, over the last 2 days, and I feel this partially with you, Giant fans, because I am a New Yorker. And one thing that we definitely share a bond on is our dislike for the city of Philadelphia. So last night, there was no question where my rooting interest was. My rooting interest was squarely, and that's taking my personal vendetta against Todd Bowles aside. Like, I don't love Todd Bowles, but I put my dislike for Philadelphia ahead of everything. And last night, I needed something to make me feel better, because Jacques Vaughn doesn't know how to coach a freaking NBA team. So I needed something, and none of that later. Don't worry, I won't bring it up again. But I needed something to distract me. And last night, watching the demise of the Eagles, and you really didn't know it was over till late third quarter, if we're being honest, because it was still a close game, despite how much Tampa was outplaying Philadelphia. But the destruction in that fourth quarter, the look on Nick Sirianni's face, the look on Jalen Hurts' face, the look on all those poor schmucks who took a plane to Tampa to watch the Eagles against the Buccaneers, that made me happy. But I also know that Giant fans enjoyed the misery of Sunday, because you witnessed the Dallas Cowboys get absolutely embarrassed. And I keep racking my brain. Giant fans, what gave you more pleasure? Was it the destruction of the Philadelphia Eagles, which was this long-winded storyline of them collapsing and blowing the division and you guys kicking their ass week 18 into losing in the first round of the playoffs? Or was it that kind of short shock of the Dallas Cowboys getting dismembered by the Green Bay Packers? And I go back and forth on which one would give me more pleasure. So I ask the soon-to-be Hall of Fame Giant running back and the lunatic Giant fan, which one gave you more?
Well, I think the better release was the Cowboys. So the Eagles, you kind of felt like it was happening. Right? They played terrible down the stretch. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not a team that anybody had any expectation to going into this season. They lose Tom Brady, the best quarterback ever, blah, blah, blah. He's 45 years old. But, I mean, dare I say it, they play better without Tom Brady this year. Baker just gives them more options in what they're going to do offensively. But to me, the Cowboys felt like it came out of nowhere. How dominant the Cowboys were at home in particular this year. Now, part of that was because they beat up the Giants, they beat up the Jets, they beat up some other teams at home that were not very good, but you expected them to just at least show up. They didn't get off of the bus, not even the bus. They don't take the bus. They didn't get out of their own cars down at AT&T Stadium. So to me, the surprise and the more fulfilling one was the Cowboys getting destroyed. I mean, that game was over at halftime.
No, you're right.
I mean, this is a lot like annual holidays, right? We love Thanksgiving. We love Christmas. We love 4th of July. Evan probably loves Earth Day or whatever else he loves. I love Cowboy Elimination Day, but it's never a surprise. Now, giving up 48 points at home might have been a surprise, but we knew inevitably in August, even after week 1, when Cowboy fans called like Mario and taunted me, we knew that day was coming. We didn't know the full extent of the Eagle collapse. Yes, we saw it the last few weeks, but they were still a 10-1 football team. And just because we saw signs of it, the finishing blow of losing to the now, look, they played better, but the lousy NFC South champion in that spot, knowing that the Eagles are still a team that were in a Super Bowl a year ago, and knowing that they're probably not going to win a Super Bowl now if Sirianni doesn't stick around, that hurts. I'm sorry. I am full-blown out of hand sanitizer watching the Eagles lose, where the Cowboys, I'm just used to that day happening.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
It is very interesting when you analyze these two collapses as Giant fans, because you're right in terms of the shock value, as you said, Tiki, of Dallas getting embarrassed.
It's bad. But look at what they scored at home.
No, I get it, but Sean's also right that you kind of knew there's no way Dallas is getting to the Super Bowl. While with Philadelphia, we saw them get there last year.
They were just there.
Yeah.
Maybe they would figure it out.
But if they win yesterday, you never know. Oh boy, here they are, they're back.
But I think that the issue with the Eagles, it was just ignored. Like, we didn't talk about it. Like, nobody's talked about the changes that happened defensively and the guys that they lost and the guys that they were trotting out there, one of whom they wanted to cut. Darius Slay, there were reports that they were going to cut him, and they never did, and yet he was out there, and he played terrible, as did James Bradbury. These guys didn't want to tackle. They got exposed by, I don't know, David Moore, right, and Trey Palmer, the two littlest wide receivers on Tampa. I mean, forget what Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Cade Otton
And by
did.
the way, those guys, Mike Evans and Cade Otton, how many drops did they have in this game?
Right.
This should have been worse.
They absolutely could have been worse. So I think, for me, the Eagles, like, they just ignored their biggest issue. Like, there was a big elephant that was sitting down there in Philly around the defense, including the new coordinator, right? They lose Jonathan Gannon. They bring in Sean Desai, who was not prepared for the job, gets sat down, and you throw Matt Patricia in there. Like, there was this massive little elephant sitting right there about their defense that nobody wanted to talk about because they have Jalen Hurts. And they have all these offensive talent.
The tush push.
We just didn't like pay attention to it, and it came back to bite them in wild card weekend.
I
down
go
in Tampa.
back and forth so much on this because the Eagle fan, and I know we've got Eagle fans listening because you guys are sort of weird. You live in South Jersey, some of you, and you cross over. Because I've met many Eagle fans who are like, hey, I'm a diehard Met fan. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. Football, I'm an Eagle guy. Baseball, I'm a Met guy. I went to a Nets-Sixers playoff game last year, and I met a lot of Philadelphia 76er fans who are like, oh, yeah, big fan of the show. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, yeah, big Met fan. And I'm like, excuse me? One guy I met was like, yeah, big Sixer fan, but I'm also an Eagle fan. And I'm like, what? So I know that there's this weird mix in South Jersey. So I say this with a little bit of peace and love. You guys are so obnoxious. And I think you're more obnoxious than Cowboy fans. Because I think at the end of the day, Cowboy fans, they know where this is.
They accept where their flaws are.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. The Cowboy fan knows, yeah, Dak's overrated.
Right.
Yeah, we're not getting to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Eagle fan doesn't because they've experienced the opposite of it. They were in a Super Bowl last year. So seeing the Eagle fan cry, that gives me as a New Yorker more joy than the Cowboy fan kind of fulfilling their self-fulfilling prophecy of always losing. And so that's why I lean a little bit, even though I'm not shocked by what happened last night, and I don't think any of us should be. I think the Eagles told us over the last few weeks, we're not good. We're a wounded bird. We saw it Week 18 against the Giants.
Yeah,
they have made it obvious for all of us to see. That's why yesterday at the end of the show when we're making our picks, I said on the air what I thought was going to happen, which is what happened. Tampa would beat them. The Cowboy thing really did come more out of left field, but I think what pushes me towards enjoying the Philadelphia loss more is the crying that's going on in the city of Philadelphia. The crying that's going on in South Philly from some of our friends and neighbors. Oh, no. And I love the fact that they've turned on Nick Sirianni.
Right, they want to fire him already.
Well, a year ago when Nick Sirianni was the toast of the town, I remember saying this on the radio, and I meant this with respect, but I really felt this way. I said, Nick Sirianni's got a punchable face. A very punchable face.
I remember when you said that.
But in that moment, everybody in Philly, they wanted to kiss him. They wanted to hug him. They loved him. Remember when he was crying during America the Beautiful at the Super Bowl? It was like a beloved moment. I saw through it. I said, this guy's a freaking fraud. Oh, it's going to turn bad. And Nick Sirianni has authored the greatest heel turn we have ever seen because it literally took the Eagle fans like a 6-week period to go from this is our Vince Lombardi to this is our Adam Gase.
Well, I mean, the problem is that he was such a jerk on the way up, right? He like mocked you and like, come on, Chiefs, like we want you, Chiefs, whatever.
Yeah.
Like he was a jerk on the way up.
Yeah.
So on the way down, guess what? We get to be the same. And look, I don't want to see anybody fired ever, but it would be great for the turmoil that it caused in the NFC East. Now, like every team has a coaching issue. The Commanders don't have a coach. Everybody wants to foul McCarthy. Now everybody wants to foul Sirianni, and Brian Dable's an ass. So
might be the longest tenured ass in the NFC East by the end of the week.
What the hell is going on in the NFC East? All the coaches are so join the club.
Join
the club, Eagles.
And I want to pick a specific moment as a fan sitting there on a Monday night, still pissed off that Jacques Vaughn doesn't know how to coach a basketball team. I want to pick a moment in which I thought that was it for Nick Sirianni. This was the moment where he lost a football game and lost the locker room. Now, you've played, so I can see you saying to me, Evan, you're putting much more into this than you would imagine. So correct me if I'm wrong, or put me on your shoulders and say, Evan, you're a football savant. Are you ready?
Let me hear it.
The Philadelphia Eagles score a touchdown. Dallas Goedert finds the end zone, and it makes it 16-9. The Philadelphia Eagles line up to kick an extra point that would make it 16-10. At this point in the game, if you're trying to remember where we are late second quarter, okay? An offsides is called on Tampa Bay on the extra point attempt. So now Philadelphia has a choice. Nick Sirianni's got a choice. He can just kick the extra point, make it 16-10. Why not? You're a touchdown away from going ahead. Or because now it's at the 1-yard line, you can go for 2. There was no reason in the world outside of desperation and arrogance to go for 2 in that spot.
Yep.
And Nick Sirianni did. And here's the feeling I got sitting at home when he decides to go for 2, and we all know what play he's calling. He's calling the tush push. The play that the Eagles are automatic at, the play that's become so successful, you've got babies on the other side saying it needs to be banned.
The tush push.
When he lined up his team for a tush push, I thought to myself, this is not really worth it.
No.
Like, if you get it, okay.
You're up by 5. Like, you're down by 5. What's
Right.
the point?
But when he failed and that stadium exploded because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did something that so few teams have been able to do, and that stopped the tush push.
The tush push.
I said to my wife, who was sleeping, I said, they're done.
Yeah.
And no one responded.
Yeah.
And I said it again. I said, honey, they're done. And then half asleep, she's like, what do you mean? And I said, they have just failed on the play they've perfected. And even though it's 16-9 and the game isn't over, I can feel the air coming out of that sideline. The arrogance and the confidence that we have a play no one can stop.
The tush push.
Just got stopped. And it was for no real benefit.
Yes.
And I thought in that moment, yes, it's a one-score game. Yes, a lot can change. Nick Sirianni got desperate and arrogant all at the same time. And I knew in that moment, they are effed. Am I reading too much into it?
No, you're not, actually.
Well,
Jason,
no.
Go ahead.
More importantly, your wife lying next to you, asleep, and you yell, honey, they tried the tush push. What do you
Right.
think they
The
were
tush
doing?
push.
We were going to try to get the kids out of bed.
Honey, can we push these kids out of bed? I want to do something with your tush. What? I'm not following you, honey. Look, it might have forced Jason Kelsey, fantastic career, Hall of Fame center, into retirement. Because for the first time, a team did what no other team could do, which was stop it. And how did they do it? They undercut with Greg Gaines, undercut Kelsey, stopped him from getting that forward momentum because it's always low man wins. And then you got Vita Vea, who is the largest human being that I think I've seen next to Tony Saragusa and Sam Adams, those guys for the Baltimore Ravens that beat us up in 2000, right? Vita Vea is that dude, and he stoned him at the point of attack, and then KJ Britt jumps over the top and just drags him back across. I mean, that's how you do it. Right? You stopped the tush push. You took every bit of whatever little momentum the Eagles thought they had and threw it right back in their face.
Yes.
And the second half was an utter destruction.
The game ended because of the arrogance and I know it sounds like a contradiction,
But it was pointless.
arrogance
But it was
and
pointless.
the desperation.
It was pointless
I
arrogance.
know. There was no point. You're down.
Right.
You kick an extra point. You're down by 6 points, Nick. You score a touchdown, you're ahead.
The tush push.
Going for 2 was like this weird, oh my God, we scored a touchdown. Let's go for 2. We're only at the 1 yard line.
There was no added benefit.
But it was also mixed with an arrogance of nobody can stop this. And on a national stage in the wild card round with 30 million people watching, we saw the Bucs stop them. I looked at that play and said, they're done. And now the Eagles are done and the Cowboys are done. And Giant fans, you had a rough year. You had a rough year. But today is a day where you can and you should smile because ding dong, the witches are dead. The toll-free number is 877-337-6666. We'll get to your calls coming up. We'll analyze if the gap is closed in the NFC East. And where does Bill Belichick fall into all of this? Plus, I'm going to endorse somebody that needs to be in the new Giants Ring of Honor. We'll get to that coming up in your calls, 877-337-6666.